This webinar is live and we're just waiting for everyone to join, so stick with us for another couple minutes and we'll start right in, let's say, 4 minutes. We should begin. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so we have more viewers in the room. Just say hi in the chat box and we will begin with the presentation. We still have like another 60 seconds before we're gonna start, so just checking who's in, and if you can write us where you're connecting from, say hi in the chat box. Okay, so thank you for joining us today. My name is Domas and I'm a Director of Customer Success at Repsense, and today I'm going to be giving a presentation about data-driven communication. As promised, after this presentation you will receive an electronic book written by Repsense CEO Mykolas Katkus about data-driven communication, and let's spend these next 60 minutes diving deeper into the topic. For those who are connecting with us for the first time, quite often we have webinars on our website, so just check our website at www.repsense.io/learn. There's a whole learning center with a bunch of videos of how to work with online reputation management, and data-driven communication is a new topic. So this video will be placed on the website if you want to come back to the video after the event. Also share it with your friends or colleagues at the company. Also, I would like to encourage you to read our blog. There's a lot of interesting news articles in our blog about how to work with online reputation and also what we are developing here at Repsense. So take the opportunity to visit the website, and if you're interested to join us or become a client, book a call with our sales representatives, and they will tell you the whole story about what we're doing at Repsense and what kind of magic we are creating here. Okay, so without any further ado, I would like to jump into the topic of today. And today I want to talk about data-driven communication. It all started with Jonah and Paul, or the incentive at Huffington Post, when they decided to create a click meter, which allowed the editors to check every 10 minutes to see which stories make it to the headlines and which of them are engaging by the readers, what are the articles that are being clicked on and read. The system also had a default setting that it would remove poorly performing stories from the page. It was the first time when the editors had an instant view of each article, and as I'm quoting from the book, Brenner recalled, it made the whole room stop competing just for the front page placement and start focusing on bringing traffic from the web. And it really grew the audiences. So that was the moment when they went from mushroom hunting to farming and opened the Pandora's box. And this is the similar stories that we also heard in the media in around 2012, when the whole clickbait strategy started, when a similar news article in Lithuania for the first time, looked at the statistics of the internet portals and realized that now it's really the end of the old media, as it has been said by one of the media managers. So if you understand that currently the main objective of the whole content is to generate views and to get more clicks, which means also more banner impressions or more content being placed. So the articles or media websites are competing for the audiences to engage with the content. But how does this change the whole communication industry? Have we adapted? Have we changed our approach to how we communicate in the media? I want to talk about some existing trends that have grown exponentially in the last days. And with every age group, they have their own media. And in that media channels, they usually talk differently, in a different language, not necessarily, but maybe in a different style of way. And if Facebook and Twitter, currently X, is more for the boomers and also the Generation X. So Instagram is more about millennials, and TikTok, while Snapchat are for Zoomers. And new social media content like BeReal, Discord, Fortnite, Roblox, these are all alphas. So you see, according to the generation, there's a social media selection that would most likely to use that. Being a media that wants to talk to all of these audiences in all of these channels, can we really have enough power to grasp all of these channels and be able to communicate effectively in all of those? I also want to talk about the political polarization, and the US has exported the political polarization to Europe. Communication is not happening in a vacuum, and while the cancel culture is rife, a speaker can be dismissed due to his political views or previous reputation even before he finishes his first sentence. So it's hard to convey a message when it's being conveyed by a person that can be shut down automatically just because we know about his previous history or associate him with a political party or a movement that we don't choose to be a part of. And another interesting part is about how long, what is the lifetime of the media content. With new stories, in abundance, we see stories that generate a lot of engagement in one day, but are totally forgotten in the next two. So how long does the story live? How effective that communication is when you just base it on one story. Also, the rise and fall of the influencers has been a trend in the trends agenda lately. And the recent Kantar report or research has actually showed a very interesting result that influencers as a source of media are being highly pushed by agencies and product promotion medias. But when customers are being asked how effective the influencers are in influencing their purchase decisions, the influencers have not been mentioned in the top 5 of these results. We still see a lot of traditional old media and the marketing channels, but not the influencers, while the budgets of influencers have grown exponentially as well. The new media influences the old media, because every day in the news we see the old media or traditional media commenting of what's happening on Facebook and how a tweet is creating a story. So making new stories out of posts and tweets, or even taking sides saying that we are not Facebook or this is not TikTok, we are serious media. So trying to differentiate themselves from the popular new media outlets. And another topic, I think what's in the trend is the way we consume, the consumption of the media. With the popularity of news aggregators, people live more and more living in the information bubbles, because the information that's being shown to them is connected to their previous search history, and also the way how we consume the news. Especially in my country, there's a lot of people who have recently switched to Telegram, because Telegram is one of the primary sources that are covering news stories from Ukraine. And what's nice that with a software like Telegram, you can connect different channels and sources into separate categories and groups. So if I'm interested in online reputation management, there's one channel about that. If I'm interested about in the media, what's happening with the war in Ukraine, there's a separate channel of that aggregates the data from all of these different sources, and that's usually 2, 3, 4, 5 minute stories, and a different new way to consume the media overall. So it's changing every day, and us as the PR professionals, have we changed the way we track those stories, we measure those stories, and we try to measure the effectiveness of these campaigns. On the next level, there's come also large language models or generative artificial intelligence like ChatGPT, Bard, Falcon, and the others, which has been used in many cases to make content, makes it easy to write content or aggregate different sources of content, sometimes even a new content that has not been created before, or is not really true because it's generated by artificial intelligence. With that, we see a lot of growth in SEO content being produced, and the websites, even those who say that they can identify if the content has been written by artificial intelligence or not, and have not proven to be very effective to show how much of that content can be artificially generated. Also, we have avatars and speaking on behalf of the companies, where usually it used to be a person, a CEO or someone in the company who's representing their company's ideas. Now with generative AI and artificial personas, we can have virtual personas speaking on behalf of a brand, looking very, very realistically. And also, when we search for things in the search engines like Google, we usually get personalized results related to our previous searches, or what information have we searched on the website before. So even the search is adapting to us, trying to give us the information that we look for. So, it's hard to find one tool that will provide a powerful summarization of what's happening in the media with the analytical capabilities to be able to work in all of these media channels that we have to work with today. So it takes us back to the beginning of the theory of how public relations and communications are being done. It takes us back to the James E. Grunig, which is the father of modern public relations theory in organizations. He's a professor at Maryland University, and his fundamental research has covered all the aspects of communications profession, from work ethics to impact, from communication theory to tactics. And while recently reading his book, I was really surprised that it's relevant. It's as relevant today as it wouldn't have been written in the 1980s. And you know what? Most PR departments continue to organize themselves according to Grunig's methods. That's why it's so interesting. And what is surprising that I did not come across a new book which sometimes has a fundamental, which had the fundamental change, including all these new media and social networks and content analysis. So especially in those areas where Grunig did not write about, like content performance or performance marketing or search or social media. And the most shocking is that the measurement of communications that Grunig wrote was in the area where there were like 4 TV channels, a local radio, a mass press, and he recommended measuring all of that based on the example of what AT&T was doing. So count the number of articles, count the channels where they appeared, look at the audience of that media outlet, and also use a binary sentiment of that count, whether the news was positive, negative, or neutral, or usually like positive and negative for the binary. But and ever since society became computerized, the digital revolution took place, and even now when artificial intelligence appeared, we still calculate the impact of communication based on the same 5 criteria. So shouldn't this be changed? Shouldn't we have the tools to be able to analyze the effectiveness of our public relations and communications in a different media that corresponds to the current situation? So I was looking for someone to find the information who was the first one to say that it's a 60-second news cycle. I think the former Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull was the first person to cite it. So it's not a 24-hour news cycle anymore. It's 60 seconds news cycle, and everything is so instantaneous that not only we read or the articles in a short period of time, we cannot dedicate more attention to it. We also act upon the news very instantaneously, which means that we should be able to react quickly to what's happening and be able to influence that as well. So what results do we say that we seek as a communication professional? So what do we advertise as a commercial professionals? What we do, and here are a couple examples of what's the objective of our work: to improve the image of the brand in the eyes of the stakeholders, improve evaluation of image of employee, or sustainability, or to attract investment, or to present leadership in a correct. So there's different reputation dimensions that are important to the company that we are most likely trying to improve. Also, if there is a crisis, we have a crisis management, and after crisis we might have reputation management. So we want to make sure that we got out of the crisis and then kind of started building a reputation again, or improve the reputation during the crisis as well. Also, we want to ensure that there is a favorable environment for the organization activities. by establishing good relationship with the key stakeholders like journalists and other organizations, NGOs, politics as well. And most likely it's not only about communicating, it's also about sales. So we want to support direct impact on the online sales activities more. And so we have to have some kind of data to use to track these results, how effective we are. So number of articles mentioning the company would be a good start. A positive and negative favorability of the sentiment of these articles gives us another layer of information to understand whether the articles were positively or negatively impacting our reputation. The amount of audience reached on professional channels is another number that gives us the effectiveness with the reach of the campaigns of PR activities. Also, we want to track the number of mentions of our image advocates or speakers of the company. Sometimes they can be called avatars of the company who speak on behalf of the company. And then, depending on the company and the objective we want to achieve, there might be some custom metrics. But a lot of these custom metrics are coming from performance marketing, which are media advertising spots, influencer reach, engagement with certain content or profile. And then, and once in a while we might be able to do like a brand image research to talk to the focus groups and to understand what's the actual perception of the brand currently on the market. While I'm here, maybe I'm just going a little bit of a rush, I would like to use the opportunity to ask you to leave a comment in the chat box or write a question that I can come back to at the end of this presentation. So feel free to use the chat box for anything to communicate back with me. I think I could have information here on my screen as well. Okay, so going back to the slides. Okay, so the data is important, and then with the more data organization has, the more database decisions it can take. And so if we want to track and see how we achieve, we cannot use the framework from the 1980s to justify our existence. We want to track performance that generates leads and kind of shifts to that digital revolution that is responding to the current situation or the market that we communicate in. But a lot of that data is asymmetrical. Either there is too much of it, or it's not meant for us, or it's coming from the performance marketing but not related to the communications. Or the data is too little, and this it's hard to understand if that's the data that we can trust. We try to engage the different salespeople from different media platforms to use their professional analysis to draw the attention. And what do? We can ask them to write the spots for the communication, but usually that requires to know the product, have a knowledge of the specific area, and then have enough time to dig deeper into it. So unless they have the professionally involved in that topic, then it's very difficult for them to write something precise and corresponding. So as William Gibson said, the future is already here, and it's just not evenly distributed. And then in every presentation I see people talking about artificial intelligence and how it's going to change the whole market, how it's going to how some of the jobs will be replaced by artificial intelligence. We can say that it's not necessarily true. Artificial intelligence has been here working in the IT and finance sector for more than 20 years. If we look at the field of production or logistics, there are more than 10 different transportation apps from modern warehouse management system to maps based on artificial intelligence, and Waze is a very good example, that is being powered by artificial intelligence for a long time. It collects information from billions of trips and uses it to determine the fastest route home from the bar. But we already have that. But we already have that information that is being presented to us, how to choose the fastest way without traffic to get to the bar. But does that say that we already have a self-driving car to get us from the bar to our home? And that's not necessarily true, And even when Tesla every year is promising that we're going to have the self-driving cars to next year, or Google's going to do it, or Uber is going to do it, and they're going to promote to launch it year after year. If they succeed, most likely, the consumers, it will take a lot more years for the consumers to be able to use those products. Just because the technology is there, it doesn't mean that regulation or that allows us to use that technology is already here. So just because there is a technology like that based on artificial intelligence, it's not replacing the people who already work in this field. So when artificial intelligence comes to social sciences and things like natural language processing, they have impressive capabilities to select the most popular relevant text, separate them into topics, give us a sentiment analysis of these topics and what the content is about. It could save a lot of time, especially when we try to analyze large amounts of text based on different queries. But are the requests complete? The road until the ChatGPT can regulate itself, it will be very long. And until then, ChatGPT will have to be, it could be compared as an intern in the communications department, or more realistically, like a text search and editing tool that will, of course, give you a better content, can improve the content that you created, can give it a structure or translate it to a different language. But when we want to focus on those writing skills, we lose the sight of the essential purpose, that artificial intelligence is the field primarily used for the analysis of that content. And this is where Repsense plays a major role. So I want to look at the company like Tesco in this slide, and to understand the different dimensions that the company is communicating in. So this is a very good example that shows that, when I look at the large source of data or a lot of media mentions, I want to know what they are about. And maybe, part of these topics are talking about the prices, and most of these topics are talking about prices. A part of them are talking about the products and services. But now, when they talk about the prices, are they talking positively or negatively? Because, and then let's say in this example, we get a lot of positive impact in the content about prices, while sustainability gets a lot of negative impact. And of course, Tesco, it's hard to be a sustainable supermarket, I guess. Also, when you want to attract new employees, your employer branding will be an important objective, and the amount of content that you get about this employer branding is going to go into one of these categories. So where we need to work with large quantities of data and content, and we can use the artificial intelligence to read that content and separate those in different categories and groups. A couple of days ago, I had a very good example with a mobile company or mobile network producer, and they said that once the news break out, we have around 3,000 different comments in all of the social medias. So and there is no tool that can help us analyze the sentiment of these content, because the comment can be from 2 words to an article. And then how do you compare it against each other? So one of the tactics is to separate them in those different categories, like I'm showing in the slides here today. The other one is to analyze the sentiment, so the positiveness or the negativeness of the speech in those comments and articles. So what are the questions we have to ask once we have the data? And then I'm trying to give a couple interesting examples based on what we're doing at Repsense, what our clients are trying to understand from the data that we collect. So one of those is how many texts about the employer image mention a competitor. So are you being compared in the content next to a competitor when the subject of that content is talking about employer branding, so related to someone who wants to work for the company? Which competitors are most often mentioned in the articles about your employer image? So who are you measured against? If you're measured against someone, which competitors are most often mentioned in your employer image content? So when you look at the content, who's there? What is the influence index between us and our competitors in all employer image searches? So when a person is looking to work for the company or work in the field, how often a test score will be mentioned against a competitor? Which competitors are found when they search for your brand? So who's doing SEO on your name as well? And which competitors receive the most negative reactions in the influencer posts? So you might want to track not only information about you, but also what's happening in the whole industry and who's getting positive or negative reviews. And you might need a tool for that. A good example is the story of Mondelez, and this is how artificial intelligence is reading an article. So first of all, we try to evaluate the source authority. So who's the source? What is the source that is speaking about this? And in this case, Reuters is the source. So it's a worthy source with high media authority and high media rank, that also says that a big amount of people is able to see this information, or they're going to see it, and it's also going to rank high. So the source authority will be an important part. Now, a sentiment model assigns a distinct weighted sentiment to each entity mentioned in the content and evaluates the overall sentiment of all of this content. So we can have the overall sentiment of the content, but every time Mondelez is being mentioned in the article, we can see what is the background of the story, where the brand entity is mentioned, and what is the sentiment around that. To be able to do that, we have to have an entity recognition. So we should be able to find that entity in the articles. And this is where AI capabilities are very useful, that we can scan the whole content and identify all brand mentions in the content and create a map of entries that play a role in the text. This means that not only you as a brand can be identified, but also other brand entities like your competitors can be identified in the text. Now, when we want to build a brand reputation impact model, we also want to look at assess the content based on its impact to the overall brand reputation. A sentiment of an article can be positive or negative, but it doesn't mean that it's going to influence positively or negatively your overall reputation. Like in this case, an article about war in Ukraine is very likely to be a negative. It is a negative article with a negative sentiment and will negatively impact Mondelez as a brand. Also, we have to look around or behind the content and see what's the metadata around this. And so in this case, it identifies the critical content features such as, who's the author of the article, what's the source, is there an image, what's in the image, what are the hashtags, the links, how long is the content, how explicit is the vocabulary that's being used, and evaluating the quality of the content as well. Then we look into the narrative model and try to understand, classify content narrative based on the historical data, what this content is about, what are the narratives being used, and maybe, track those as well. And also look at the reputation dimensions model. So how this article corresponds to the reputation dimensions that are important to us. most likely this will be correlating with with a reputation dimension related to trustworthiness of the company. It's been singled out in boycott over Russia business executive. So the dimension of a scandal was going to be very prominent in this case. So when we have this information, we are able to react on that, and also to be able to make this into KPIs that we can work with. So either convert this to operational OKRs for your communication, that you now the narrative, now the sentiment, now the sources, and it all can become a task that you want to change. Also, this can affect your business strategy. What you want to do to be to change that information, to be able to take over the narrative, to be found when your brand is being searched. It also becomes a part of your brand reputation strategy. How do you want to work with that brand reputation? Is it helping you, or do you want to make a shift in there? And then there can be a bunch of other key operational parameters, but it's important to define your key results and try to test the different key parameters to see how the situation is changing. And then in maybe one instance you're solving the crisis or a scandal problem, the next day your goal is to get a positive employer branding. So this comes with a lot of planning activities like content creation, or what are the actions that we should take. How do we test the different types of content, how that correlates to the audience? Going to strategic thinking, do we choose a new approach? Do we want to dominate in the one category where is a high competition, or create a category of their own? And then also go into different dimensions, if it's a leadership, if it's an education, if it's a scandal, if it's a ESG or other dimensions that might be important for our business. When you see something like this, and your intuition says that you feel like this is important, most likely this is true. As Daniel Kahneman said, intuition is nothing more than nothing less than recognition. So when you see the information that you have a memory of, that this is going to work, or intuition that this is going to work, this most likely that it's really going to work for you. So I really encourage you to dig deeper into these topics and to see what kind of stories can be found with artificial intelligence analyzing the content. And not everything is going to be nice. A lot of old problems will remain, and especially when we try different other things and test different types of strategies, some of them will fail. Some of the activities that we take will not going to be important and not going to have much impact. And especially when jumping actively in solving a problem, it's always easy to make a mistake, so some of the solutions might be bad as well. The communication teams will eventually change by getting more data scientists and analytics people on board to be able to work with communications. And testing, trying culture is also very difficult to manage. So you have to have people with the right attitude that we want to try things, we want to change things, we want to find new ways to communicate in this changed media. And the goal of this, of course, is to bring more clarity and sense of purpose. To find the ways how this can influence the whole organization. It should allow you to guess less and base your decisions on data when you communicate for the better results, of course. Thank you very much for spending this hour with me, and I will take your questions now, and I encourage you to contact us at Repsense, and we will send you an email with a video recording and a book by Mikos Katus, where you can get more inspired about database communication. Thank you for your time, guys.